Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode 127. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here on this Monday, Steelers Nation. Dave, fun weekend of sports with the Penguins. Less fun for the Pirates, I guess I should say. Kentucky Derby, that was a while. I'm not a big Derby guy overall, but Rich Strike coming down that left side on that final leg, name not announced until the last 20 meters or so. That was a really cool Derby.
Boy, I tell you, Uncle Dave didn't do Uncle Dave any favors, but it is exciting to see a long shot do that, man. You're not kidding. Even the legendary race caller who called that race really didn't even start talking about Rich Strike until the last 80 meters, something like that and all. And man, it looked like that horse got shot out of the cannon. And if you go back and watch kind of the overhead view of the end of that race, man, when that horse, all the traffic that horse had to go through on top of it there, I mean, it literally looked like that. I mean, like that thing just had an extra shift into a higher gear than get going. Then after the race too, he wouldn't leave that poor pony alone. Kept biting at that accessory pony there. But definitely, man, that goes to show you, man, never give up, right? 80-1 long shot in that situation. Imagine if you had taken that and, I don't know, boxed a trifecta or something like that. That would have been big money, obviously, with 80-1 odds on the main horse. So that was exciting. The Pirates, less so exciting. I watched that game yesterday up until the grand slam by the former Pirate, of course. That's why Pittsburgh fans can't have nice things, I guess, because of instances like that. But on a more positive note, the Penguins are up on the Rangers, and I would assume that series continues later on tonight. Am I correct?
I believe they do play tonight. Let me double check so we don't get yelled at if we give something wrong. Yes, tonight at 7. Game 4 of the series.
All right. Well, they certainly could stand to take that one too, and really put the Rangers in a bind at that point.
Rich Strike for backup Steelers running back, the vision, the speed. I'm game.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah. And work through traffic, be able to work through traffic, good balance, contact balance, and everything along with that. Yeah. Quite a run there. And obviously I don't know if that horse will go from being the one of the longest shots longest shot this week to being the favorite in the next race, but it's quite a storyline there. And regardless what happens to that horse moving forward, you win the Kentucky Derby, man. You're going to make some money off of stud fees and all like that.
Definitely. So a bit of a slower, lighter show today. A little bit later on, we'll have Devin Jackson on the podcast to get his thoughts on the Steelers draft and how this roster looks going forward. Be sure to follow Devin on Twitter at @RealD_Jackson. So we'll talk to him about 25 minutes. They want to start things off with a piece of news to drop Monday morning, according to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero. Steelers are bringing in Doug Whaley for a second GM interview, presumably making him a finalist here. That's going to happen later this week. So Whaley was part of that initial wave of 16 candidates. Former Buffalo Bills GM, of course, worked with Pittsburgh in their front office for about a decade and was most recently hired by the XFL as one of its vice presidents of player personnel last November. And so Whaley, a guy with that kind of really good front office experience, again, former GM, he's coming in for a second interview.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't know whether or not to be surprised or not. I'd kind of written Whaley off, to be honest with you. So, I don't know how many total they're going to bring in here for the second round of interviews here. But I'm he's another one I'm kind of hoping against getting it, just because I haven't been really all that impressed with the time that he spent in Buffalo there, and to hear, kind of some of his evaluations and talk on the radio. I think he's a guest on 93.7, previously over the last year or so. I just have never been overly impressed with Doug Whaley, but it's not my call. It's the Steelers' call on that. And obviously he's one of the several bringing back in for another round of interviews.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously that relationship that's really strong, or that was strong at one point. And Whaley was with the Steelers in their front office, I think, in the earlier 2000s, mid 2000s, those kinds of things. So that may be giving him a bit of a leg up here. My thought was, way back when Pittsburgh was interviewing the first wave of candidates, there would be about 5 finalists. I was going to say 2 internal, 2 and then 3 external. 2 of those guys being guys who've never been GMs before, which you have in John Spytek and Ryan Cowden, guys who also have had second interviews. And I figured they'd bring back at least one of the former GMs, a Jerry Reese or Rick Spielman, or in this case, a Doug Whaley, just to give a more diverse group overall and different, spins on how these guys would run the team. So we'll see what happens. I don't know how many actual finalists or second interviews there will be. We still don't know a lot of details about when a hire could happen, but I'm not surprised to see them bring in somebody who was a former GM for a second interview for their perspective on how they may run this team.
And so you're not overly surprised that Whaley is part of the second round of interviews, right?
Not really. I mean, I didn't really have a list in my head about who the guys would be. You would think that Brandon Hodom or Khan would be on that list. Beyond that, I wasn't really married to thinking one guy would get a second interview or would not get a second interview. But I thought overall it would kind of break down where they would have different resumes, different backgrounds of people come in to really get a nice balance to make an informed final decision.
All right, fair enough. And let's see, today is the 9th of May, and Colbert's contract lasts until the 31st. And you would think within probably towards that final week of May is when we would expect some sort of formal announcement, wouldn't you think?
That's been my thought, by about the end of the month, but I can't say for sure. And if it goes into June, even if Colbert's contract expires, it's not a super busy time. It's kind of one of the few downtimes the NFL has. And obviously teams will operate without GMs after they fire guys for a couple weeks, in January. So I really couldn't give you a great answer when that timetable would be, but I would think within 4 weeks.
All right, so we'll evidently these interviews are carrying on. I would expect that we'll start hearing more of them over the course of the next week or two.
I would agree. Dave, you've been posting some of the undrafted free agent contract numbers. Let me pull up the last batch that you had. Are there any UDFA numbers still outstanding, or do we know them all right now?
I believe we know all, but who was it? The Texas A&M edge rusher, Tyree
Johnson.
I think he's the only one outstanding. Now, not all of them have officially hit the NFLPA sheet. Most of them have. We still have not seen guys like, I think, Tucker and both the running backs, Durant and Sanders, have not officially hit the NFLPA sheet, and they have not really officially hit, I don't think, the NFL transaction sheet either, for whatever reason. So I don't know if they had to get physicals finalized or be brought in from the outside. Those could potentially actually hit the NFL transaction sheet today, but all we have to go on with those three of Tucker, Durant, and Sanders is the initial report. I think it was Aaron Wilson with the signing bonuses there. But otherwise, we think that we know 9 of 10 of them based, signing bonuses in total there.
And the largest ones that we know so far are going to be Mateo Durant and Jordan Tucker, 15,000 of the new batch that you talked about yesterday. Chris Steele, the corner from USC, getting 12,500. Donovan Jeter, the D lineman from Michigan, also getting 12,500. Jake Dixon, the tackle from Duquesne, 12,000, and Bryce Watts, the corner from UMass, $10,000. And so, decent numbers relative to Pittsburgh's meager UDFA signing bonuses and contract structures, but notable still all the same.
Right. And the rookie reservation amount for 2021, which is the number that is the maximum amount of signing bonuses teams can give to undrafted free agents in 2022 is $167,000, almost $168,000. Now, it doesn't look like the Steelers are surprised. The Steelers aren't going to come anywhere probably close to that number there, but that is the max number. Now, I think what you'll potentially see here, obviously it looks like, I think so far the lowest signing bonus has been what? Was it $5,000 or $7,500? I'll have to look back on, I know Owens, one of them got like 7,500. And I think there was one that maybe had a $5,000 signing
Chris
bonus.
Owens got a $5,000
Okay,
bonus.
yeah, Owens got a $5,000. I think that's been the lowest that we've seen so far. So that might wind up being the lowest amount of all these kids. Now, when you get into rookie minicamp next week, it'll be interesting to see if any of those guys are signed, out of that. And if indeed that's the case, I think in the past, most recent years, the Steelers have given those, the kids that they bring to rookie minicamp, they sign like $1,000 signing bonus. So something like that. Now, keep in mind that these signing bonuses, you take that number, you divide them by 3 for a 3-year contract, and then that's the amount that actually impacts the Steelers' salary cap this year in 2022. Now, take the 4 contracts signed the other day by Chris Steele, Donovan Jeter, Jake Dixon, and Bryce Watts. Combined, those 4 contracts used all of $15,665 in salary cap space there. So not a lot, because none of these contracts, all these contracts have minimum base salaries for the 3 years included in them, and really the only difference on these contracts are the signing bonus amounts. And once again, none of them rank in the in the rule of 51. So when that's the case, only the first year, the 2022 year prorated signing and bonus amount impacts the 2022 numbers. So hopefully by by the morning, because I looked this morning, it's not on the NFLPA sheet this morning here, but I know the contract of who was the outstanding one that I said that they have?
Tyree Johnson.
Yeah, Tyree Johnson. I know that's already hit the official NFL sheet as far as the transaction goes. So I would expect his contract to hit the NFLPA probably by Tuesday morning, and then at that point we should know the signing bonuses for all 10 of these undrafted free agents this year.
Right, and it's important to know for your cap purposes and just for our general welfare, I suppose. But obviously, because the money's so minor, whether you're talking even 15,000 versus 5,000, some people will try to play the game of Mateo Durant got a $15,000 signing bonus. They must really like him. He must have really good odds to make the team. It's all moot to me. They all have pretty much an equal chance to prove themselves to make the roster.
Yeah, I would, you still term those guys what I would call, at least in the Steelers' mind, priority guys. But I mean, there isn't that big of a gap. When obviously you look at the top 2 in Durant and Tucker, and raises the eyebrows that they each got 15,000. But I mean, we've seen the number higher than that.
Shakur Brown got 25K last year and didn't make the team.
Right. So, and obviously there's no guarantee these guys make any of them make the team there. So, right. I mean, we've seen guys like Terrence Garvin get signed out of a workout and then end up making the squad that way there. So, yeah, those guys shouldn't sleep any less, any more comfortable just because they got a higher signing bonus than the next guy.
Right. So, Dave, one thing you worked on yesterday, and it's a really interesting contextualization that everyone should check out. The article is sticky at the top of the page on Steelers Depot. They broke down a lot of Kenny Pickett. You're watching back through all the Pitt film, broken down the big time throws over the last couple seasons, but also breaking down all of his college fumbles. And there's some really important, interesting context there. And I'm sure we'll talk about some of this with Devin as well in a few moments. But just overall, kind of give me your initial impressions and process going through all of Kenny Pickett's college fumbles.
Look, I think this is a very, very important part of the evaluation of going deep at this point with a guy like Kenny Pickett, and I couldn't wait to get this part of it done. Luckily, I had a large portion of time yesterday to kind of dedicate to it. Luckily, we got Andrew Shaver on staff to help kind of identify this stuff here. But in total, for Kenny Pickett's career, and look, I know a lot of people have seen a lot of different numbers floating around on Kenny Pickett and the amount of fumbles that he had, and what's official, what's not official. It's hard to find kind of official stats on this. Now, Pro Football Focus has Kenny linked to 38 total plays that there was a fumble on during his career in Pitt. And I think you'll actually see 38 show up in some article. I don't know. I think one on Yahoo has Kenny Pickett as having 38 career fumbles. But just throwing out that number, you throw out that number 38 and it looks like, oh man, that's enormous. That's incredible high number there. Well, I'll tell you right off the top, 2 of those were backwards passes of that flew more than 5 yards in the air to like a running back behind the line of scrimmage that the running back did not catch. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I threw those out. Okay, because those don't need, I didn't even feel the need to list them and link to them because they just, it's ludicrous to put that as a fumble on a quarterback. And it wasn't charged to Kenny Pickett, but they are kind of listed as fumbles by, that he's connected to on at least on PFF's way of doing business there. So that leaves 36 of 38 that really needed to kind of be looked at there. So I went through all of those. I found plays of all those. I was able to link to footage of 35 of 36 of those plays. I did see the 36th play. I just cannot link to it. So I do have a visual of what happened there. Now for the findings. 10 of those 36 fumbles included some sort of issue with the snap of the football. 5 of them were off target, while 5 others were what I would deem as good snaps that Pickett just dropped. Now, some of these, even though he dropped it and picked it back up and was able to either get rid of the pass or run with the football, Pro Football Focus still kind of deems that as losing control of the football and thus a fumble there. So that's another important aspect of this that people need to set their eyes on is the fact that 10 of these actually were kind of were snap issues. Okay. On several of these, once again, Pickett was able to possess the football and even attempt to pass on a few of them there. Now, make of that what you will, and I think only one of those. Let's see, I think only one of those 10. I don't know if I put it in here or not, but I don't think any of those resulted in losing possession of the football to the other team there. Another 6 of these fumbles happened via a handoff exchange with either a running back or a wide receiver. So with Pickett playing 5 seasons at Pittsburgh, that's a little more than one bad exchange on a handoff with a running back or wide receiver. Only one of those 6 plays resulted in a turnover. Now, obviously, one fumble is one too many fumbles, right? But it is important, did the running back mess up here? Was the mesh? Did the mesh point? There's so much that you don't know, that happens in these kind of particular plays. Was Kenny supposed to pull the football out? Was the running back thinking that the quarterback was going to? There's just so much that you don't know, but it is important to know that 6 of those fumbles happened via some sort of handoff exchange. Now, one of them was even Kenny was able to corral a high-ish kind of snap, bring it down in a hurry, and then try to stick it in the belly of the player. Then it got fumbled that way there. So that's important. I mean, we've already taken, I think, 16 of these snaps, and I don't want to say thrown them out the door, but we have good context of them. 10 of them happened as a result of a snap. 6 of them happened via some sort of handoff exchange with an eligible. 4 other Pickett fumbles from his college career came down the field, either on a design run by him or a scramble attempt that included him taking a hit. So that is a bit concerning there. He's got the football. He's made it past the line of scrimmage. He's running down the field. He gets hit and the ball comes out. obviously those kind of things, are ball security issues for sure in that. 14 other fumbles by Pickett were essentially strip sacks on him. 7 of those included him attempting to throw the football while in the pocket. So envision him kind of being caught back with the ball in the throwing motion. Would it get strip sacked that way? And 7 others happened with him attempting to scramble away from the pressure. Now, one of the things that stuck out with me, and I think it's one of the things that you've kind of talked about, carriage of the football.
Yep.
When he is, whether in the pocket about the pass or escaping pressure, he does, and I can guarantee this will be one of the things that they work on with him. He needs to have that second hand up there and have a better process of trying to protect the football inside the pocket there. So if there is one thing that you can really take away from these 36 fumbles of his, is that yes, indeed. And I don't view the number as being overly high. 14 strip sacks, or 14 essentially strip sacks overall, because those are going to happen over time. But a few of those probably could have been prevented, you would guess, if you got better process and carriage of the football there. 2 other fumbles that Pickett had during his college career came as a result of him actually losing the grip of the football while either scrambling away in open space or on a design run. So carrying it like a loaf of bread, right?
Right. Again, that's carriage of the football that he'll have to work on.
Right. Just running. Oh, I dropped the ball, that kind of thing there. So 2 of those in his tape overall there. So now here's another interesting element of it. And I probably should go back through and designate this. Kenny Pickett did not start wearing gloves regularly until about halfway through the 2020 season, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe it was, wait a minute here. No, I think it was midway through the 2019 season there is when, and towards the end of it, really, I think around the Boston College game in 2019 is when you start seeing them wear gloves a little bit more. Now, however, I think even in those Louisville games in 2020, let me double check here. Yeah, even in against Louisville in 2020, not wearing gloves there. So probably more about the later part of 2020 on into his last year, 2021, is really when you start seeing him, wear gloves a lot more. All right. But particularly in 2021. Now, the positive thing here is, we only have 6 instances of total in 2021 of him losing the football. All right.
Right.
So there's progress there overall. When you look at, especially, how many snaps that he took in 2021, you look at the kind of, the way that these fumbles happen. I'll read them off to you. Against Western Michigan had 2 of them. Scrambling, hit down the field. So he's past the line of scrimmage, scrambling, gets hit, the ball comes out. The second one against against Western Michigan, just a bad exchange on a handoff. Against Duke, one of those scrambling strip sacks. Against Virginia, a dropped good snap. An off-target snap against Wake Forest, and then a pocket strip sack against Wake Forest there. So if you run these through in your mind up until through 2020, and you're looking at each play, and then you get to 2021, and then you see the total number, and B, you see kind of how these happen in 2021, I think it gives you a little bit of optimism when it comes to that overall. Now, is he going to have the big question is, okay, this is all fine and good. Is he going to have a fumbling problem like this at the NFL? Where's the context of kind of, other quarterbacks, I guess, college quarterbacks overall? Well, look, I can tell you this much. You had a guy like Desmond Ridder, who a lot of people I don't think talk about Desmond Ridder fumbling the football at Cincinnati. Now, this is a different set of stats that come from, what's the name of that? Let me
Football Outsiders or
no,
sports?
teamrankings.com.
Okay, gotcha. I know the site.
You probably are familiar with that
Mhm.
site. Now they have fumble totals listed on theirs, and obviously they don't count things like bad exchanges, backward passes. I would expect this to be a more truer count, I guess you could say, of actual fumbles, if you will, and probably you have at least some level of uniformity across the board when it comes in, because they've been around forever. And I mean, I've used them before and referenced them. I think they do a good job, and whatever they pull from, it looks to be balanced across the board. They had Kenny Pickett down for 23 fumbles for his college career. Teamrankings.com.
Okay.
Desmond Ridder, they have down as for 22 in 2 less games. Okay. So technically Desmond Ridder had a slightly higher fumble rate than Kenny Pickett did per game. Yet here we are talking about Burger King Kenny, right?
Yeah, right. That probably stems from the hand size and people trying to make that quick and easy correlation. I think couple quick thoughts here. I think the fact that Ridder and Pickett both just played a lot of football and caused their fumble numbers to come up. I know that relatively speaking, Ridder had a higher fumble rate, but both guys, fumbled the ball a bit because they played, they were many, many year starters. Ridder a 4-year starter, Pickett, I think, was a 3 or 4 year starter as well. So that's one baseline thing to know.
Here's one thing. Malik Willis is down for 13 fumbles in 23 games. That's even a higher that's a higher fumble per game rate than both Ridder and Pickett.
Yeah, that's a great stat. And that's what Kevin Colbert talked about. They said they were comfortable with his fumble rate. They didn't talk about the overall aggregate number, the rate, which is the important number. But yeah, great job by you to go through all this, to provide this context, to provide the video to that. Made my life easier. I was going through clips last night. I will say the couple concerning things, so still even coming out of this study, is that carriage issue that I've talked about since day one of watching him. And he had 7 fumbles while he was scrambling behind the line of scrimmage. Is that how you're categorizing that, as in the 7 fumbles where he's like running around?
Right. Not technically stepped up in the throwing motion.
But not past line of scrimmage either, right? He's behind the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Okay.
But behind the line of scrimmage there. And once again, a lot of these is because it's dangling, because he has the ball dangling down. He's going to have to get in the habit, I think, of, while in the pocket with that ball up high, two hands up on the football, and when he leaves the football, or when he leaves the pocket, he's going to have to keep that same posture so that he's ready to throw too, right?
Right.
On top of it there. Now, easier said than done, I guess, but they do obviously have drills. That one thing will be the biggest thing that I'm willing to bet that Mike Sullivan and anybody who works with him, and they have the drills where the quarterback's in the pocket, probably not as violent as the Jameis Winston drills that he does there, but some sort of drills where you're in the pocket and you got someone with instead of a football on a stick, a boxing glove on a stick, trying to knock that thing out and all like that. So I would imagine that's going to be one of the biggest things with him moving forward, and you'll be able to report firsthand on this at training camp, right? The kind of drills and the kind of things that they're working through on him. I would imagine the most, and it goes without saying, bad snaps are going to happen. You would like to see him at least on, what did I say? Like 5 or 6 of these snaps were ones that he's got to have, they were good snaps that he dropped for whatever reason there. The other half of bad snaps are probably going to happen,
Right, but can you bail your center out in those moments, because you're going to get those bad snaps occasionally over a long season in the NFL.
Right. Ben Roethlisberger became the Tony Pena, and that I'm dating myself there. Tony Pena was a catcher for the Pirates many moons ago, and very, very good at stopping or preventing pass balls or pitches in the dirt, wild pitches, that kind of thing there. And Ben Roethlisberger over here almost became second nature to Ben to kind of and now for my next magical trick, being able to feel those wide snaps. So I would imagine that there would be a portion of practice at some point of snap these things wide on me, man.
Yeah. And if you do want to argue a hand size issue, you could argue that's where it hurts Pickett a bit, where he's just got some smaller hands to try to catch those off target snaps. So yeah, I think 7, and I don't know this to be a fact because we can't compare it directly with the other ones, but 7 fumbles on scrambles where he's running around behind the line of scrimmage to me is a concern. And I don't even know if you have to have 2 hands on the football, but just don't let it swing away from your hip.
Right.
Just bring it up to your body, and then you'll be good. Generally speaking, when it's low, if it's low on your hip, I don't care if you have 10-inch hands, 8.5-inch hands, whatever. You're going to lose the football if some 300-pound lineman squatting down on your wrist. The last thing I would say that concerned me was on some of those snaps that were even the good ones or the ones that were slightly off target. When you saw some elements, you saw the Clemson game, I think in 18 or 19, the Virginia Tech game the year after that. That's when he had some fumbles on some snaps. And you do talk about the elements and, obviously he's used to playing that environment, but I think had some struggles in those environments. And I think in particular moments when there was some rain, you saw some of those snap issues pop up for him.
Sure, absolutely. Look, I'm not trying to paint these. The only positive takeaway from all this outside, when people think about Kenny Pickett and fumbles, they're thinking that all 36 of them are his hand being too small for the football, and basically having it by his side and not able to hold it that way. That's probably the connotation throughout this process that people have in their head. Fortunately, they're not all like that. Once again, several of them. Now, look, can you excuse exchanges between running back and quarterback? Absolutely not. But it's impossible for us to say who's really at fault, in all those. You would hope that you rep that kind of stuff enough, at least at the NFL level, that you don't see that stuff's very, very few and far between there. My biggest takeaway after going through all these numerous times and watching the reel is that, hey, 2021, the number was down. And the kind of fumbles give you a little bit of peace of mind of the few that he had too, because of how they happened there. So my biggest takeaway was there was a very positive jump from 2020 to 2021 with not only the volume of fumbles, but how the fumbles happen gives me a little bit more peace of mind that he's made progress in that area. Obviously in 2021 too, 2-glove Kenny most of the time anyway, on top of it. And I suspect that he's going to wear gloves at the NFL level.
Which, don't tell that to Richard Sherman. That's apparently a big issue for him, which felt a little outlandish to me.
Yeah, can't trust. He doesn't trust a quarterback who wears gloves. That's A+ analysis there. Look, the narrative is going to be there until it's not there.
Sure, he's got to take care of the football. That's the biggest thing. But I think the other thing you mentioned as well is the relativity of it. We talk about number of total fumbles. That number doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It's about the number, per game, because the guy who started twice as many games is, of course, going to fumble the ball more than the guy who didn't. And as you're pointing out, his fumble rate was lower than Ritter, Willis. I mean, how else does he compare to the rest of the class? I'm assuming he's probably around or below some of those guys.
Look, the best fumble rate. Let's see. Corral had 10 and 37. That's not bad. Zappi had 4 and 14. Howell had 11 and 37. So those are all like one fumble every, a little more than every 3 games for those guys. Whereas Pickett is one fumble every like 2 1/4 games. Okay.
But better than Willis and better than Ritter, correct?
Right. For Willis, it's a fumble every 1.75 games, roughly. So now you only got 23 games on him, but I mean, and you hope that team rankings is using some universal source on all these. I don't think team rankings charts everything there, but they probably do have a master feed that they get from the NCAA or something like that within that. Overall, look, even some of the NCAA stats are bad. I mean, Pickett's charged for a couple of fumbles even on the NCAA game
play
books.
By play,
game book play by or game book totality and season in stuff that he wasn't even in the game for. So that's how there. Look, we try to do this stuff, right? We try to go through. We want to get our own eyes on this kind of stuff, and not only do we want to put our own eyes on it, we put it on the eyes of the other people.
Right. Yeah. So I think that context is really good. So check out the article on Steelers Depot. Excuse me. And I think as you said, the progress is really important, and just understanding that not all 36 fumbles are him losing the football in the pocket. They're happening for a variety of different reasons, and that's just a point to at least recognize.
Yeah, go through all of them. Look, if you have time, go through, click the links, and go watch the individual plays and decide for yourself. That's why we do this.
Yep, absolutely. So great info there. I think it's now time for us to take a pause, and we'll come back with Devin Jackson. And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And as we said, top of the show, and just a moment ago, we are bringing on Devin Jackson, who did a great job covering the draft. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at @RealD_Jackson. Devin, how you doing?
Doing pretty good this morning. Thanks for having me on. It was a really busy draft class or draft cycle, and kind of excited to kind of just look back and kind of recap everything that happened, because it was a crazy couple of days. A lot of trades happened in the first couple of days, and players going lower than we expected, especially the quarterback. So very excited to sit down and talk about it and kind of recap it.
Right. It really was an atypical draft. As you mentioned, the quarterback's only one going in the top 70, even to not really knowing for sure who the number one pick would be, basically, until the actual, card was turned in. Really interesting for a lot of reasons. Just overall, Devin, just give me a quick 30,000-foot view of how you think Pittsburgh drafted with their 7 picks, Kenny Pickett obviously being the headliner of this class. Just overall, what's your initial thoughts and feelings about how Pittsburgh did?
Yeah, so I think, the Steelers were able to get, players pretty much at, every draft slot that, most people thought they may not have got. I mean, they got Kenny Pickett to start off, but then, the next few picks, they get, at 52, they get George Pickens, someone that some people thought may end up going in the first round after, some talk about, whether or not, a team may be interested in him in the top 50. But able to get him at 52, and after a couple teams took some receivers a little bit higher than you would have expected, like Tyquan Thornton to the Patriots. So able to get George Pickens, a player that can turn into a true outside receiving threat and has all the physical tools to be a great receiver. Just the health was the only thing. Then you get the Marvin Leal at 84. To me, I mean, that's great value. I mean, he was someone coming into the season, people thought was going to go first round. And then at the very least, people thought maybe he'd go top 50 after it was all said and done. But him, they being there at 84, I mean, it's great value for the Steelers. So so second and third round picks, those were, two guys that people thought may not have been on the board at that time. And they were able to get both of them. And really didn't have to move up or move around to get him. So tremendous value there. The Calvin Austin in the 4th round, more of a luxury pick, I think, but someone that can, add to the return game as well as, be a threat in the receiving game. And then your last couple picks, Connor Hayward, just made sense for the Steelers. I mean, someone that's been connected to him for a number of months. And, obviously his brother playing for the Steelers as well helped, but he just felt like a Pittsburgh Steeler through and through. And then the 7th round picks, Chris Dukin and Mark Robinson, both players that maybe they make the roster, maybe they make a push, especially the South Dakota State quarterback. Maybe he ends up, taking over the second or third spot or the third spot at the very least for right now on the quarterback depth chart. So we'll see what happens. But I felt like for the Steelers, you get players, especially in those first, was it 5 picks? You get players that can be, contributors within the next season or two.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Pickett, obviously, you have to wait and see if when he's going to take over the mantle from Mitch Trubisky. We assume that will likely be the starter, but I mean, you get guys that by next year they all should be starting.
To go back to Pickett here at the top, I actually don't think I know what your thoughts on Pickett really were pre-draft in terms of ranking him compared to other quarterbacks. Did you have a quarterback ranking? Was Pickett your top guy? What were your thoughts on him before the draft?
Yeah, for me, Pickett ended up being QB number 4 for me, which to me, it wasn't more so of his ability, because I thought he would be the one quarterback of all the quarterbacks selected that, could start within, the next year or two. Those other guys, I think they were still a couple of years away from starting. But for me, I think for him, it's, he has a high floor. I think he could be a really, above average starting quarterback that can come in, run the offense, takes what the defense gives to you, and just operates at kind of that status quo. I don't see kind of the same ceiling in terms of some of those other quarterbacks like Desmond Ridder or Malik Willis in terms of them potentially becoming high-level starters. But to me, I think Pickett could come in and be a really solid starter and can be reliable on a down basis, take care of the football. And, you can trust, giving him the keys to the organization, and he's not going to, be the reason you lose games. He can keep you afloat and mm-hmm. Keep everything moving on schedule. So that's why he ended up as QB4 for me. I do think, and I gave him, I believe I gave him a mid-second round grade. But for me, it just was more the upside. I didn't see the same upside as some of those other quarterbacks, but I did see him being able to come in and start within a year or two.
When you talk about a guy like Kenny Pickett, how concerned are you? I went through and posted and contextualized all the fumbles and all like that, and I don't know if you got a chance to go through all those or not and all, but where do you see his gap? But where do you see the gap at? I've been asking all the guys that between him and Mitch Trubisky right out of chute, as is right now. If you take Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett, how big is the gap?
I don't think the gap is super large. I do think, in terms of comfortability of the NFL speed and just understanding, the kind of running an NFL offense and understanding that position. I mean, I think there's a gap, but I don't think that it's a sizable gap in terms of talent wise. I think Trubisky is the better runner of the two, and shown the ability to make plays off script. But in terms of just a down basis and consistency, I don't think there's going to be a huge gap early on. I think Trubisky is going to be the incumbent starter, but if things don't go so well, out of the gate, and maybe 4 or 5 weeks in, the Steelers don't look great offensively. I think Pickett could be in position, to come in and be able to understand and run the offense as is. So I don't think the gap is huge. And I think, honestly, by the end of the season, if things aren't going well for Trubisky, they would throw Pickett in there and then just kind of let him take over from there. So I don't think starting off, I think the gap it makes sense because Trubisky is he's been in NFL several years now and understands, the speed and terminology and everything. But I don't think the gap in terms of, how much better is Trubisky is to Pickett. I don't think it's enormous.
When you look at DeMarvin Leal, and you said it at the top there, I mean, this is a guy that a lot of people thought had he came out last year, A lot of people had him as a first round pick. Pretty much a slam dunk kind of first round pick at least probably a top 50 selection overall. Why do you suppose you had a guy, and this wasn't a great kind of defensive tackle, class. I don't, it's kind of top heavy, I think, overall. But why do you suppose a guy like DeMarvin Leal ended up still being on the board in the third round when the Steelers got him?
Yeah, I think, some of it is due to kind of how he was used at Texas A&M. He was kind of a tweener, defensive lineman / defensive end. There were times he played more of a, hand in the ground defensive end. There were times, he was kind of lined up all over the defensive line. So I think it was about maybe figuring out what position he was going to play at the NFL level. But, there was some inconsistency with his film. I mean, he had great games against teams like, Alabama and showed up really well against teams like that. But there were other times you couldn't really find him on film. He was just kind of quiet overall. So I think kind of the inconsistency of, how effective he was on a down-to-down basis on film, especially in those marquee games. Like Arkansas game wasn't that great for him. The few other games on film wasn't that great for him. As opposed to some of these other defensive linemen who made their presence known, every few drives for him. Sometimes there will be halves where he didn't really, make much of an impact. So I think for him, it's about finding that consistency. And now that he's playing one true position, I think that will help him kind of his transition to the NFL.
Devin, to look at second round pick George Pickens, that's a guy obviously with big time talent. Probably almost certainly would have been a first round pick had it not been for the ACL injury last March. Do you think he can make an impact right away? My only concern with him is that he hasn't really played football since 2020, and the guy's only 21. So it feels like there might be a bit of a learning curve here we're not talking about. But what do you see Pickens' impact potentially being in your number one?
Yeah, so for Pickens, I think really is just about how fast he learns the offense and how quick he can get it down, because the physical talent is there. I think it's going to be undeniable. There's going to be, probably passes in practice where he simply just makes them and it just doesn't make any sense. That's how good of athletic ability he has. And we've seen, kind of the catches he's made over the course of his career in Georgia and what he did in practice there. So I think it's going to be hard to keep him off the field, because I think when he comes in, he's going to be, one of, if not the most athletic receiver on the roster. But I do think his snaps may be limited early on just because of the knowledge and how quick he can learn the NFL game. And I do think he can be a little bit of a, more consistent route runner. I think there are times where, he hits the blind spots on DBs and one-on-one coverage and is able to create separation. But at the same time, he is a big body receiver that, you can kind of just throw the ball up to. So I think for him, it's going to be a bit of a learning curve early on in terms of understanding, the concepts, the terminology, and just getting down the NFL speed of the game. But, I think once he gets more comfortable in the offense, maybe the second half of the season, I think you're really going to see him start to blossom in that receiving room.
I've been asked this question a couple of times. Do you think the fact that Pittsburgh drafted two receivers, especially an outside guy like Pickens, says anything about Deontay Johnson's future or lack of future with the Steelers going forward in terms of post-2022?
I don't think so. I think they're trying to make him I don't know if they're thinking they can kind of be more versatile with how they use him and not just rely on him being the only outside receiving threat. Obviously they got Chase Claypool as well, but they could be preparing. Maybe they don't want to pay him what the market is asking for a receiver like Deontay Johnson. So it could be a possibility they're thinking about moving off from him, but it also could be another possibility that, they just want just more weapons on offense, since they lost James Washington, Ray McLeod, and Juju Smith-Schuster. You do need an upgrade in that receiving room, and maybe they want to inject more talent in there. So Maybe it's a little bit they're looking forward towards what the contract would look like for him, but then maybe they're also looking forward to just wanting to have a more dynamic receiving room and whoever is a quarterback, obviously Kenny Pickett of the future, but Mr. Trubisky this year, there won't be any lack of talent that you can fall back on and say why Trubisky wasn't successful.
Devin, this team signed or came to terms with 10 undrafted free agents after the draft obviously ended there. Jake Dixon, Mateo Durant, Donovan Jeter out of Michigan, Tyree Johnson out of A&M, Moultrie, another edge outside linebacker out of Auburn, Chris Owens, Alabama, Chris Steele out of Southern Cal, cornerback, Jordan Tucker, tackle out of North Carolina, Jalen Warren out of Oklahoma State, and Bryce Watts out of UMass. Any of those guys can you speak to any of those guys that maybe had your attention during the pre-draft process? Do you have a couple of favorites in there? What is your kind of insight on a few of these guys?
Yeah, so for me, kind of hearing that list, so Mateo Durant was the first one that stuck out to me from that class. Really, really good running back out of Duke, and was the workhorse there over the last couple of years. So he kind of stands out to me. Maybe tough for him to make the roster, but I could see him kind of sticking around and being a rotational back in that Steelers running back room. So he was one of the first names that you mentioned that jumped out to me. And as I look at some of these other guys, Chris Owens from Alabama, really good in the run game and able to move people in the run game. Just need consistency in pass blocking, but with the Steelers kind of questions along the offensive line, maybe he sticks around as a depth piece for the Steelers. A little surprised he didn't end up overall getting drafted. Jalen Warren from Oklahoma State, another running back that really caught my eye in the draft process. It's surprised he wasn't talked about more. Played at Utah State, transferred to Oklahoma State in this last year. Had several long touchdown runs in his final season at Oklahoma State, and has some breakaway speed. Now, just for him, it's about continue to add to his receiving profile. He caught a lot of screens, and I didn't see a lot. You use him a lot in just straight up passing downs, but we also want to see some improvement in pass blocking as well. But I think he has a decent shot to make the team or make the roster. But I think it'll have to be him contributing through special teams likely. And then Bryce Watts from UMass, he stuck out to me as well. He was someone that was down at the East-West Shrine game and held his own against some of the better receivers down there. So I think for him, special teams likely is his route to go to get on the roster, but maybe a depth piece at corner. So those are three guys on the list, or four guys, I should say, that kind of stuck out to me that have a decent chance of making the team. But all of them probably are going to have to do so by making a contribution on special teams.
Devin, looking around the AFC North, you saw Baltimore 2 first-round picks, Hamilton, Linderbaum. The Bengals really seem to focus on their secondary. The Browns making a trade back to acquire a couple extra picks and took a kicker in the 4th round. Just give me your overview of what the rest of the AFC North did and who you thought had a good draft.
Yeah, obviously the Ravens kind of stick out in terms of who they were able to get because they got, Kyle Hamilton, Linderbaum 1st round, but then they're also able to go out and get David Ojabo and some of the other picks they made. But to me, the team, I felt like that, went out and really nailed their needs to me were the Cincinnati Bengals because they needed help in that secondary, pretty badly. After, obviously the Super Bowl, and they were unable to, stick with Cooper Kupp towards the end of that game. They also just needed to inject some youth into their secondary as well. But I also like what they were able to do, adding offensive lineman Cordell Volson, one of my favorite guys in this draft class, and able to come in and maybe compete for a spot on that offensive line. And then they got Tyson Anderson, someone I was really fond of in this draft class in terms of what he brings to the table, versatility wise. So I think they made a lot of moves to me that signal they're trying to prepare for the infusion of weapons in the entire AFC, especially going that many defensive backs. So I thought it was impressive for them to get that, good of a class. I thought the Cleveland Browns had a decent haul. I don't see, all of those guys making a, contribution early on. I do think there's a few picks they made that was looking more so down the line. But overall, I thought, obviously the Ravens kind of stole the show in the entire NFL. But I did think the Bengals also had a pretty good draft too.
Dave, anything else for Devin?
No, I think we what can Calvin Austin the third become an every down slot guy, or is he going to be a guy that you kind of rotate in with maybe depending on needs, or kind of a big slot kind of guy to kind of function in there. He's a physical guy. He has the want to when it comes to blocking, but obviously because of his size, he gets run off, quite easily in those situations there. What do you kind of expect, his game by game usage to eventually look like?
Yeah, so I think for him early on, it might be more so a situation where he's being used kind of in, I don't want to say gadget role, but used in a role where, he's being used as a threat to, take a jet sweep or used in motion to kind of, help ID what the coverage is being and whatnot. So I think for him, it may be situationally early on if you want to kind of use him and to gain an explosive play or use him in passing downs. I think that'll make him a little bit more situational, especially if, the Steelers want to use a lot of three receiver sets. I would assume it'd be at some point Pickens, Claypool, and Deontay Johnson. So I think it really depends on personnel and how they're trying to use them and probably be rotated early on. Just because you want to see how he handles some of the NFL physicality. Is he going to be able to block against some of these guys and provide value not only as a receiver, but as a blocker as well? So I think he gets rotated early on. You test it out and see what all the things he can do on the field. Use him in jet sweep motion, maybe use him in screens, use him to kind of create some explosive plays. To see how he goes, but if he becomes a reliable guy, I think he can become a every down slot receiver at some point in his career. But I think early on, it probably will be him on more of a snap count per se.
Final question for me, Devin. What is your biggest concern about Kenny Pickett as he makes a transition from college to the NFL?
I think it's just about how consistent is or how often is he going to attack with the deep ball? I think, he has accuracy, at the short and intermediate levels of the field, but I wonder, how much is he going to take, risk downfield? How much is he going to attack downfield and, really threaten the, opposing secondaries? Because I think, 15 yards and in, I think he's going to be really, really solid and be able to hit passes all over the field. But I just wonder in that next dimension, when it's time to, attack the deeper thirds and halves of the secondary and, take a deep shot, how is he going to do with that? How's his deep ball accuracy going to look? And how consistent is he going to be able to hit those throws? So to me, that's the biggest thing I worry about. I don't worry about the down reps. I think he'll be fine operating the offense, but I do wonder if offense start challenging at the line of scrimmage, and force him to maybe look a little bit deeper and look off safeties. How effective will he be doing that?
All right, Devin, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate all your insight, your great draft coverage. Again, be sure to follow Devin on Twitter. Let me make sure I pull up the right handle here, @RealD_Jackson. I'm sure you'll provide some content for the site, and we'll talk to you again in the future. Thank you again, Devin.
Thanks for having me. Always good to talk about the NFL draft. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, our special thanks to Devin Jackson for all of his work pre-draft and for joining us to talk about what happened after the draft. Dave, as always, good information from Devin.
Absolutely. Always enjoy the perspective that Devin gives. And man, he's so great on Twitter during draft season. And obviously he does a great job writing profiles for us and sitting in on these roundtables and all. So just across the board, we're so blessed with the kind of talent and all that we have contributing to the site. So thank you to Devin once again. And the best thing you can do is follow these guys on Twitter and promote their work as they go along. We hope you do that.
Yeah, and again, that's at @RealD_Jackson to follow Devin, who shares my love of Tyson Anderson. So I can appreciate that. All right, Dave, again, not a whole lot else for us to talk about today. So let's jump to reader emails and close out today's show.
Yeah, not too much in here, and that's not surprising with Mother's Day weekend and all like that there. But I got one here from Pastor Joe Green. Says, Dave and Alex, please discuss the differences and similarities between the Steelers offense with Canada and the Pitt Panthers offense with Whipple. Explain the benefits of Pickett moving from one to the other. And Alex, would you do a YouTube breakdown on this? Boy, they elaborate on the similarities between Canada's offense and the Pitt Panther offense that Pickett was in the last few years. Feel free to make the YouTube video as long as you like. Thank you for all you do. The Steelers Depot team is second to none. Look, I mean, you've already written quite a bit about the fit that Pickett has in what we perceive to be the Canada offense, and that's the biggest thing, right?
It is. And yeah, I probably won't do a YouTube video, but I did a film room article on Steelers Depot. So just search in, in Steelers Depot film room, Kenny Pickett, I think it was called Seamless Fit or something in that regard. So check out that article that kind of talks about some of the things you're asking for. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would call Matt Canada's system exactly a West Coast system, but fairly similar. And a lot of those core principles, a lot of under center work, a lot of play action, getting the quarterback on the move, a lot of pre-snap motion, the shifts, the trades, the motions, the jet plays, things like that. So I think there's a relative, familiarity to what Pickett ran in college under Whipple, who of course was an NFL coach, Ben's first quarterback coach, and what Matt Canada is trying to accomplish with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think on those baseline levels, working under center, just being comfortable with how the offense is structured is going to make this transition even easier. Yeah,
look, and when going through more and more tape, I'm seeing more and more instances that Kenny actually worked under center, Mm-hmm. So that's obviously a plus there, and just some of the pro style elements with that Whipple did use at times will obviously help translate into some stuff as well too. But the biggest thing overall is just, and Alex covered this really right out of the chute here, is the projection. Not so much what he ran overall in the Whipple offense, is just what we have seen or what Alex has seen on tape that kind of translates, how we best kind of see him fitting into what we think will be the Canada offense moving forward. And it's quite an expansive post. So that should be the Pastor Joe Green. That should be that should handle all your needs. What Alex did on, kind of the seamless fit into the Canada offense.
Yeah. So just search that article. I did that, I think about a week ago. I wrote that article up. So that has a bunch of clips that I think will give you a good answer.
All right. One other one here. Ryan McKee writes in, big fan of the show. You guys talk Steelers matters with professionalism and unclouded judgment. Appreciate that. Said he listened to another show from Friday. They mentioned the Steelers are projected to be $75 million under the cap for next season. Obviously, next season's 2023 cap numbers aren't fully known at this moment, but they are estimated to be higher than this year's. This would give the Steelers a lot of cap room to build around a younger contracted team. Pickett, Najee Pickens, he has in parentheses here, with still high contracted veterans, TJ, Cam, Minka, and maybe Deontay. But what are your all findings for cap space projection currently for the Steelers 2023 contracted roster as of today? Ryan McKee. Ryan, can I be quite honest with you? It's quite silly to even kind of look that far ahead right now, to be quite honest with you. Ryan, can you tell me exactly what the Steelers are going to do with TJ Watt later this offseason, exactly how much they're going to restructure his contract, if any at all? It'd be helpful to have those exact numbers. Being in the ballpark by 6 or 7 million is not enough when it comes to that. Can you tell me exactly what the Minka contract extension is going to look like later this summer? I've got an idea, and I'll probably be close on that, but don't know for sure. Can you tell me exactly what's going to happen with Deontay Johnson this offseason? Is he going to get an extension? Is he not going to get an extension? That while I could figure out probably what a contract would look like, that you're talking about 2023 cap numbers with guys like Minka and Deontay, and then what's going to happen with the TJ Watt restructure? How will that impact 2023? As you can see, and what's going to happen with Mitch Trubisky? Is he going to hit some of these incentives?
Mm-hmm.
Are the Steelers going to end up paying an extremely high roster bonus? Is Trubisky's number going to be a lot higher than what most of us kind of envision it kind of being right now? I mean, those might not seem like a lot of big questions there, but they are really impact this team. I will tell you this, Ryan, regardless of the amount of cap space that the Steelers might end up having. And yeah, look, if you don't have a franchise quarterback on the roster, it allows you to do a lot of different, a lot of different things here. But that being said, unless a new general manager just comes in and throws out, several of the principles with the Steelers and how they attack free agency, I really don't expect this team to I expect them to be busy, probably the same level of busy that they were this past offseason. But I mean, I don't expect them going out there and signing top of the market kind of free agents, regardless of who the GM is. Maybe I'm wrong, Alex. How do you see the vision of or the practices of the new general manager moving into next season, even if they do have abundance of cap space?
Sure. I mean, obviously, it'll partially depend on who that new GM is and what their philosophy is. But I would still say, I think Rooney has more influence in those things than people think about. I mean, it is Rooney's money you're spending. And I think the overall philosophy for him and for Mike Tomlin, for the organization since Chuck Noll arrived in '69 was to build through the draft. And that'll be, I think, the overall premise of how this team operates. They're not going to be at the forefront of free agency handing out the $80 million contracts. I think that's going to be true regardless of who the next GM is replacing Kevin Colbert. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, to talk about cap space. We don't know what the cap number for next year is going to be, right? We don't know what that number is going to come in at, correct?
Right. And, while it will obviously be expected to jump some,
Sure.
The NFLPA wanted this thing to kind of be, because of the borrowing from future years and all like that. They wanted this to kind of be a more kind of gradual thing coming out of COVID and all like that. So yeah, we expect it to jump, but probably not astronomical on top of it there. And there's still a little bit of uncertainty as of what maybe the cap number might be.
Right. And I say that to say, I think it's going to go up for sure, but how can you say this team's going to be 75 million under the cap? We don't even know what the cap is. So I think it's just hard to put that number to it.
And there are projections out there. Will those projections be kind of right from the Joe Corey's and all like that within about 10 to 15 million of what the cap number is? More than likely so. Absolutely. But
10 million could be a big swing when you're talking cap space.
Sure. But it also boils, look, short answer is I expect this team to be fine when it comes to cap space as we enter March of 2023. How can they not? You have the TJ Watt contract and all like that, which kind of is the new franchise quarterback kind of contract, if you will. The Minka deal, they'll be able to swallow that pretty good. Personally, I don't think they're going to extend Deontay Johnson, but what if they do? His 2023 cap number obviously would kind of impact that. They're going to be absolutely fine. I think what people wanted, why we get questions like this, Alex, is because people want to see this team go hog wild in free agency. And they see numbers like that thrown around by, other shows that I promise you aren't as educated on in cap situations as I am. I'm not being pompous here. I mean, it's the truth.
It is.
When it comes to that stuff, I think people see this and they want some sort of hope that the Steelers will go hog wild and, oh man, look at all these free agents brought in and top dollar kind of stuff. And that kind of becomes the expectations. But until something like that happens, I do realize a new GM, a new kind of regime, if you will, coming in, I'll believe it when I see it, because it's just not the Steelers' way. You hear Rooney talk all the time about building through the draft and kind of supplanting via free agency. Look, if the Steelers end up having to go as heavy in free agency next offseason as kind of they did this year, then they probably have made a lot of wrong decisions, not only in the guys that they signed this year in free agency, or guys that they re-signed a la Chikwama Okorafor, those kind of guys, but also it means they probably didn't draft well. I mean, the Steelers' way of doing business, and when that business kind of goes bad, is why you kind of have them. You kind of see them spend to the levels that they did this past offseason, right?
Right. I mean, this year, obviously, they had just more money naturally to spend, but they addressed areas of the team that they hadn't been as successful with. They've been trying to find an off-ball linebacker for a while now. Devin Bush, of course, has struggled. They've gone through Avery Williamson and Joe Sherbert, and so they had to go pay Miles Jack, and hopefully he's the guy that finally fits. The offensive line needed a lot of work, obviously, so they had to address that as well. And so, yeah, I think what you said there is accurate.
And they're going to spend where they need to spend. They're not going to be afraid to give, extensions to people that deserve it. And that's why the Deontay thing is going to be interesting to watch play out, because the whole cap floor, I mean, the percentage of the caps, cash to cap that teams have to spend in the CBA, yada, yada. I mean, other than Minkah Fitzpatrick, Alex, and quite possibly Deontay Johnson, who are guys on this roster that you could see getting huge deals, former draft picks right now? And obviously you got a ways to wait on Najee, because you can't do a new deal with Najee until after his third year in this season. Right. You're not going to have, because you didn't have that first round draft pick a couple years ago, you're not going to be faced with the 5th-year option on a guy next offseason, correct?
Right, because that pick was traded away from Minkah.
Right.
What you're saying. Yeah. Right. Yeah, because Devin Bush, this year was his year for the option. Next year, there is no option decision because there was no first-round pick. Obviously, Minkah will get his long-term deal, but that's a separate thing. I mean, Chris Boswell, not a monster deal, but he could potentially be someone that you do something with. But yeah, the big name's Minkah, and then the really one to watch is Deontay Johnson.
Right. So, the Steelers are still going to do what they need to do as far as cash to cap percentages that the NFLPA calls for over the 2 or 4 year spans, or whatever that works out to be and all now. But I imagine this will be the first of many questions that we get along these lines. Is, man, they're expected to be this X amount way under the cap, and give us the feel good feeling, Dave, that this team's going to go hog wild in free agency next offseason. And I can't do that. Now, obviously with the new GM, I guess it could go that way, but I wouldn't expect it, just because of the Steelers' principles always have been build through the draft and kind of, fill in the gaps in reasonable free agency signings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well said there, Dave.
All right, I think that's got us there. You know, not trying to talk down on it, right? It's just, man, we're still dealing with getting. We don't even have the draft class signed yet. Even all that's kind of predictable and stuff like that. To me, it's just kind of silly to talk about the team's 2023 cap situation right now. And I won't be talking much about it until we get right after the 2022 season ends, and we know who the free agents are. We know. You know, you paint a much better picture, because I could paint it one way right now and it end up being $25 million off. And people say, well, you said it was going to be this, you know, and I'm just not going to put myself in that situation, you know, when I don't have to.
No, that's smart. So yeah, promise you, if Dave's not focusing on it much right now when it comes to the cap, then it's not worth focusing on. When it's time to focus on it, I promise you, Dave will be at the forefront with the best and most accurate and most complete information there.
All right, I have some more contextualizations coming up on Kenny Pickett. I think we're going to do some third down stuff.
Nice.
What kind of stuff you got coming, Alex?
Yeah, I was going to mention today, I teased this last week, my ranking of all of Kevin Colbert's draft picks, 176 made from 2000 to 2021. Obviously, I'm not going to include the 2022 class on that list, because where the heck would you put them? But my first ones came out today, starting from the bottom, working to the best. So the worst draft pick I think Kevin Colbert ever made, 176. I did put Senquez Golson there. Other names on that list, some throwback names for all the wrong reasons. Alonzo Jackson in round 2 back in 2003. Fred Gibson, who did not make the team out of camp as a 4th-round pick back in 2005. Bruce Davis, 3rd-round pick in 2008. Alameda Ta'amu, the nose tackle from Washington, which was just a mess of a pick for so many reasons. Trey Archer's on that list. Willie Reed. Everyone forgets about Willie Reed. Everyone talks about Lima Sweet, and no one ever thinks about how bad of a pick Willie Reed ended up being. So it's a lot of crap to go through the list. We'll get better over time, but looking at some of the worst picks on Kevin Colbert's history going up today, I'll have part 2 of that series for tomorrow.
All right, and maybe on Wednesday, maybe we have a couple more contributors kind of put some finishing touches, maybe on another roundtable session talking about this 2022 draft class.
Yeah, I know Tyler will not be available. He's out of town right now, but we'll see if we can get maybe another guy or two to come on the show. All
right. So in the meantime, hopefully you enjoyed all that. Get to SteelersDepot.com and go through that Kenny Pickett fumble contextualization post. It might open a lot of your eyes when it comes to that stuff. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you want to donate, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you like the ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the ad-free button. For $25, you can have an ad-free version of the site. Special thanks again to Devin Jackson for coming in on the podcast today as well. So until Wednesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.